Somewhere in your life, right now, there is a door. I do not have to describe it. The moment I said the word, your mind went straight to it. The relationship, the position, the dream you have prayed over so long that the praying has worn a groove in you. Your hand is on the handle tonight. Maybe it has been there 3 months. Maybe it has been there 11 years. And you came here with one question. Is God closing this door? Or is He asking me to keep knocking? So let me be honest with you. Before you spend one more minute of your night on this video, I cannot read your door. Nobody on this platform can read your door. And the channels promising you 7 secret signs are selling you something they do not own. Heaven did not hand out master keys to strangers on the internet. But here is what I can do. A door is silent. A door will stare back at you for a decade and never say a word. Your hand is not silent. Your hand knows whether it is knocking or clinging. It knows whether it rests there in faith or grips there in fear. The door keeps its secrets. The hand tells the truth. So tonight we are not going to interrogate the door. We are going to read the hand. And it starts after midnight, in a ruined city, with a sound. Listen. It is past midnight in Jerusalem. And somewhere in the dark, you can hear hooves picking through broken stone. A man is riding through the ruins alone, going slow, stopping, staring, moving on. His name is Nehemiah, and 3 days ago he arrived from Susa, the winter court of the Persian Empire. Back there he was cupbearer to the king, standing close enough to the throne to hand Artaxerxes his wine, which meant trust, standing, protection, a life most men in that empire would have traded years for. He left it because a report broke his heart. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, they told him, and her gates are burned with fire. So now he is out here in the dark. And the book of Nehemiah, chapter 2, says he told no one what God had put in his heart to do. He just rode, and looked, and grieved, and measured. A man surveying a ruin at midnight, carrying a calling he has not said out loud yet. Now watch what happens the moment he starts to build. And keep a list while you watch. First comes the mockery. 2 officials named Sanballat and Tobiah hear about the work and laugh out loud. What are these feeble Jews doing? They sneer. If a fox climbed on that wall of theirs, it would fall over. Then the mockery hardens into conspiracy, and the conspiracy sharpens into threats of armed attack, until the builders are working with a trowel in one hand and a sword strapped to the hip. Then come the rumors. Letters flying around the province claiming Nehemiah is plotting rebellion against the king. Then an open letter, published where anyone can read it. Then hired prophets, paid to lure him into the temple so his enemies can trap him there. Fear inside the camp, exhaustion on the scaffolding. Halfway through, a food crisis breaks out. Families mortgaging their fields just to eat while they build. Now look at your list. Ridicule, opposition, threats, false accusation, money, trouble, fear, fatigue. That is the entire catalog. Friend, every sign that the videos in your feed use to prove God is closing a door showed up on this man's job site. All of them, at full strength. And here is the sentence I want you to say out loud in your kitchen tonight. Nehemiah was standing in the exact center of the will of God the whole time. If Nehemiah had believed what the internet believes, Jerusalem would still be rubble. He would have quit in week 1 and ridden back to Persia, saying the Lord closed the door, while the Lord was building the wall through the very hands the enemy was trying to scare off it. Because there is a lie that has to die tonight, before we can read anything else. And I want to bury it deep. The lie says difficulty is a message. The lie says that if a thing were truly from God, it would flow. Doors would swing. Checks would clear. People would cooperate. And a warm river of peace would carry you from the first step to the last. I do not know who sold American Christianity that idea, but they did not get it from this book. In this book, the man in the center of God's will slept beside a sword. Now, hear me carefully, because I am going to say this with both hands. Opposition, all by itself, proves nothing in either direction. Hard roads run toward right doors and wrong ones alike. But here is what opposition cannot do. It cannot close a door that God is holding open. It never has. Resistance can slow a wall. It cannot cancel one. There is a woman I want you to meet. She is in her 2nd year of running a small bakery. The dream she prayed over for a decade before she ever signed the lease. And the 2nd year has been brutal. The oven died in March. A chain shop opened up the street in June. She is pulling 4 in the morning shifts and crying in her car more than she would ever admit to her small group. Last Wednesday, she finally said it out loud at prayer meeting. Maybe God is closing this door. And everybody nodded, because it sounded humble. But nobody in that circle asked her the one question that mattered. Is this a closed door? Or is this just the 2nd year of every bakery that has ever existed on this earth? Hard and closed are not the same word. They are not even in the same family. Now, so we do not swing into the opposite ditch. Let me say the other side plainly, because it is just as true. Refusing to quit is not automatically faith. There are people grinding away at something God released them from years ago, and they call the grinding perseverance. And underneath it is really just fear of the grief waiting on the other side of letting go. So how did Nehemiah know the difference? How did he hold his ground under pressure that would have flattened most of us? He knew because of what happened before the opposition ever started. Go back to Susa. Before one enemy laughed, before one letter flew, Nehemiah had wept over that city, fasted for months, prayed, and received something specific, a burden that would not lift, a king who granted the request, letters of passage, timber from the royal forest, an escort for the road. The assignment was settled in his heart before the assignment was ever attacked. So when the arrows came, they were hitting a decision that had already been made in the presence of God. And arrows cannot unmake that kind of decision. They can only test it. That is the question I want to hand you now. And I want you to carry it all night. Are you holding on to a command? Or are you holding on to a desire that you stamped a command on top of? Those two grips look identical from the outside. Same white knuckles, same tired arm, but one of them was settled before God before it was ever tested. And the other one was born in your own wanting and got baptized later. I am not going to answer that for you. I could not if I tried. Everything we do for the rest of this night is going to help you answer it honestly. One more thing before we leave this wall, because somebody needs it. You have been told to check for peace. If the peace is there, proceed. And if the peace lifts, That is God closing the door. Be careful with that. Peace matters, and Scripture honors it. But your feelings are a witness in this courtroom. They are not the judge. Nehemiah had knights on that wall with a sword in his fist and his stomach in knots. Doing the right thing scared him. Jesus himself in a garden. Sweat blood over the assignment he came to earth to finish. If losing the warm feeling proved a door was closed, the cross would have been cancelled on Thursday night. So yes, listen to your peace, then make it show its papers. Fear can impersonate the absence of peace, and comfort can impersonate its presence, and neither one holds the gavel. Before we move, do one small thing. Go to the comments and write a single word. Write knocking if you are still knocking on your door and you know it. Write holding if the honest truth is you can no longer tell whether you are knocking or just gripping. Remember which word you wrote, because at the end of this night I am going to ask you again. Now come to the coast with me, because if hard roads do not prove God is against a thing, there is a harbor down at Joppa that is about to teach the opposite lesson, and it is going to teach it the expensive way. Let me ask you something most Christians have never been asked. If the door swings open easily, what exactly does that prove? Because we all carry a quiet assumption, and it goes like this. If God is in it, things fall into place. Say it out loud, and you can already hear the crack in it. But we live by it anyway. The job that comes together fast must be from heaven. The relationship where everything clicks must be sent. Smooth is a signature. Easy is a yes. There is a man walking down to the harbor at Joppa who is about to run that theory into a fish. His name is Jonah. And you only need one piece of background. God has spoken to this man with a clarity most of us would pay money for. Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it. A destination and a message. No fog anywhere in it. And Jonah heard it perfectly, and stood up, and went the other way. The Bible says he rose up to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. Nineveh was east. Tarshish sat at the far western edge of the map, about as much opposite as a ticket could buy in that world. Now do something with me on this dock. Count the open doors. He comes down to Joppa, and door number 1. There is a ship sitting in that harbor. And door number 2. Of all the routes on the sea, this one is bound for Tarshish, the exact destination of his disobedience. Boarding now. Door number 3. There is room on board for one more passenger. Door number 4. The man has the fare in his pocket. The text says it plainly. He paid the fare thereof, and went down into it. And then door number 5. The one that should raise the hair on your arms. A storm comes up so violent that seasoned sailors are screaming to their gods. And where is Jonah? Below deck, fast asleep. The man is running from the Almighty and sleeping like a baby while he does it. Even his nervous system cooperated. 5 doors, every one of them open, every one of them smooth, and every single inch of that journey headed away from the will of God. So say this sentence with me, because it needs to live in your house from now on. If smooth circumstances are the voice of God, then Jonah is the most obedient man in the Bible. And he is not. He is the case study running the other way. which means something very few preachers will stand up and say plainly. So I will say it. Open is not the same as sent. An open door is a fact. It is not a signature. Hell will pay your fare. Now hold on, because I want to be exact about what I just said. The book does not tell us the devil booked that ship. What the book shows us is simpler than that, and scarier. A man can run from God downhill, with the wind at his back, the whole way. Nothing in the story slowed him down until the sea itself stood up. Convenience carried him in the wrong direction. And convenience never asked him a single question. Now bring this off the ancient dock and into your week, because this is not a fish story. This is Tuesday in America. There is a man, mid-40s, restless at his company for a year, out of nowhere. An offer lands, 50% raise, better title. A recruiter saying you are exactly who we have been looking for. The interviews sail through like the whole thing was arranged in advance. And he sits at his kitchen table and says the sentence, I want you to start hearing differently. Honey, it all just fell into place. It has to be God. And maybe it is. God does open doors. And sometimes provision really does arrive with that kind of speed. But in this man's case, there is one detail he keeps talking past. The new schedule takes him away from the very thing he stood in a church and promised to be present for. The thing falling into place is pulling him out of place. And it fell into place is not the same testimony as it fell from heaven. You have to check the direction of a door, because the direction is where the fingerprints are. The smoothness never carried any. All right, somebody says. Then how do I check the direction? I am glad you asked. Because the answer is waiting in the dark, in a cave near En-Gedi. In one of the most electric scenes in the Old Testament, picture blackness, the kind you only find deep inside rock. David is pressed against the cave wall, his men scattered in the shadows around him, hardly breathing. These are hunted men. King Saul has been chasing David across the wilderness with 3,000 soldiers, hunting him like an animal, and David has done nothing to earn it except be anointed and be excellent. He is exhausted. He is innocent. And he is hiding in the back of this cave when the impossible happens. A figure appears in the mouth of the cave, black against the daylight. It is Saul, alone. No bodyguard, no escort. The king himself stepping into the dark to relieve himself, with no idea that the man he is hunting stands close enough to touch him. Run the odds on that. One cave out of 10,000 caves in that wilderness, and the hunter walks into the one that holds the hunted, and walks in blind, and walks in alone. Then comes the whisper, and I need you to hear this whisper carefully, because it is the most dangerous voice in this whole video. One of David's men leans close in the dark and breathes it into his ear. Behold, the day of which the Lord said unto thee, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand. Do you hear what is inside that whisper? That is opportunity. Quoting scripture, the door stands open. And the door came with a Bible verse attached. And it came with the agreement of good men, brothers who had bled beside him and wanted him safe and crowned. Perfect circumstances. A word from the Lord. The counsel of your closest friends. All three seals pressed onto the same moment. If you ever wondered how strong temptation can get, this is it at full strength. It rarely shows up dressed in red, It shows up sounding like a testimony. And David rises in the dark, and he moves toward the unaware figure of his enemy with a blade, and he reaches out, and he cuts cloth, not flesh, the corner of Saul's robe. That is all. And the very next verse says something that should stop you cold. It came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him, because he had cut off Saul's skirt. His conscience struck him over a piece of fabric. Most of us would have taken the head and written a worship song about it by the weekend. This man felt conviction over an inch of hem. Why? Because in that black cave, David could see something his men could not see with the daylight behind them. He saw what walking through that open door would cost. And the cost was not going to be measured in blood on a cave floor. It was going to be measured in the kind of king he would become. Follow his logic. If David takes the throne by his own knife, then David holds the throne by his own knife. Forever. And every night, for the rest of his life, he sleeps with one eye open, waiting for the next young man with a blade and an open door. But if the Lord gives the throne, the Lord keeps the throne. Same crown either way. Two completely different kingdoms. And David would rather stay a fugitive in God's timing than become a king in his own. So here is the test that walked out of that cave. And it is the sharpest tool I will hand you tonight. When you stand in front of any open door, do not waste time asking whether it is open. You can see it is open. Ask this instead: who do I have to become to walk through it? That question exposes everything the smoothness hides. Jonah's open door required him to become a runaway from a direct command. David's open door required him to become an assassin instead of an heir. And your open door, the easy one, the timely one, the one everybody around you keeps calling a blessing. What does it require? If the answer is someone smaller, someone compromised, someone you would not let your own children watch you become, then it does not matter how wide the thing is standing open. The door God opens will never demand that you close the door on the person he is building. But now the honest ones in the room are leaning forward. And I can hear the objection. And it is a good one. You are saying, "Preacher, that works when there is a command on the table." Jonah had a direct order. David knew the anointed of the Lord was off limits. My door is not in the 10 Commandments. There is no verse about my job application. No chapter about whether I text her back. No, thou shalt not with my situation printed on it. I live in the gray. And in the gray, how do I tell my faith from my wanting? That question is exactly where we are going, because there is a man on the road right now, riding between 2 vineyard walls, and he is a prophet who has heard the real voice of God, and he wants something so badly, and has dressed the wanting in so much prayer, that in a moment he is going to stare straight at what is blocking his road and never see it. 3 times in a row, his story is next. And of everything we walk through tonight, this is the chapter most likely to be about you. The staff comes down across the donkey's back for the 3rd time, and the man swinging it is a prophet. And 10 feet in front of his face stands an angel of the Lord with a drawn sword, and the prophet cannot see it. Hold that picture, because before this chapter is over, I am going to ask you what is standing in your road. His name is Balaam, and get his resume straight before we go further, because it matters. This is no roadside fraud working the crowds for coins. Balaam is a real prophet who hears the real voice of the living God. And when he blesses or curses, kings take it seriously. That is exactly why a king named Balak wants him. Israel has come up out of Egypt, a camp so vast it blackens the plains of Moab. And Balak looks out at that sea of tents and panics. So he sends messengers to Balaam with money in their hands and one job on the contract. Curse this people for me. And Balaam starts well. Hear me. He starts well. He tells the messengers, "Stay the night, and I will ask the Lord." And God answers him with a clarity nobody could misread. "Thou shalt not go with them. Thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed." 2 sentences, a closed door with the deadbolt thrown. And in the morning, Balaam sends the messengers home. If the story ended there, we would name churches after this man. But watch what Balak does. Because the enemy of your soul studied at the same school, he does not accept the no. He raises the offer. A second delegation arrives, larger, more distinguished, and the promise takes your breath. "I will promote thee unto very great honor, and I will do whatsoever thou sayest unto me. Name your price, prophet." And now comes the sentence that tells you everything about the condition of this man's hand. Balaam says to them, "Stay here tonight, that I may know what the Lord will say unto me more." More. Sit with that word. What more is there to say? The question was asked, and the question was answered, and the answer had no fog in it. There is exactly one reason to carry a settled question back to God, and it is that the answer you got is not the answer you wanted. Balaam is not seeking the will of God. He is appealing the verdict. He is standing at a door heaven already locked, jiggling the handle and calling the jiggling prayer. And I have to stop the story right here, because some of you are doing this exact thing tonight, and you have never once called it by its name. You already have your answer. It came months ago, maybe years ago. It came through Scripture, through circumstances that could not have been plainer, through every mature voice in your life saying the same hard thing, and you are still praying about it, still seeking confirmation, still asking the Lord to speak, when the truth is the Lord has spoken, and what you are really asking him to do is change his mind to match yours. There is a kind of praying that is actually refusing. It kneels. It uses all the right words, and underneath the posture it is a negotiation. Now watch what happens on the road, because it is one of the strangest sequences in the whole Bible. God tells Balaam, "Go with them, but speak only what I tell you." And Balaam saddles up at dawn. And the Scripture says the anger of the Lord was kindled, and the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. The text leaves a tension there that scholars still wrestle with. A permission on one page and an ambush on the next. And I will not pretend to untangle every knot of it tonight. But what happens next is not tangled at all. It is as clear as anything in this book. There is now a being with a drawn sword standing in the middle of Balaam's road, blazing, armed, unmissable, and the prophet does not see it. The donkey sees it. The animal swerves off the road into a field, and Balaam beats her back onto the path. The road narrows between 2 vineyard walls, and the angel stands there again, and the donkey presses against the stone to squeeze past, crushing Balaam's foot. and he beats her again. Then the road narrows to a place with no room to turn at all, and the angel stands there a third time, and the donkey simply lies down underneath him. And Balaam, a prophet, a professional seer, a man whose whole occupation is perceiving what ordinary people cannot, sits on that animal in a rage, swinging his staff, blind to the sword 10 feet in front of his face. The Lord had to open the mouth of the animal before the man would listen. And when God finally opened Balaam's eyes and he saw the angel said the thing that should be carved over every door in your house, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned these 3 times. Unless she had turned from me, surely now I had slain thee. The beast of burden saved the prophet's life, because the beast had no stake in the outcome. That is the whole mechanism, and I want to put it in one sentence and let it sit on you. Desire does not blind you. It does something worse. It gives you tunnel vision, and the tunnel points exactly where you already wanted to go. Balaam's eyes worked fine. He could see the road, the vineyards, the walls, the honor waiting at the end. What he could not see was anything standing between him and what he wanted. Because wanting at that voltage edits the world. It deletes the obstacles and leaves the prize in high definition. The donkey saw the angel because the donkey did not want to be promoted. So now let us leave the ancient road and do the harder thing. Let us read your hand. Because you asked a fair question at the end of the last chapter, in the gray, where no commandment has my situation printed on it. How do I tell my faith from my wanting? And the answer is that forcing leaves fingerprints, and they show up in the gray just as clearly as anywhere else. I have sat at enough kitchen tables to know there are 4 of them, and they are almost always the same 4. So check your own hand against these while nobody is watching you. Here is the first one. Counsel shopping. A woman has asked 5 people about the relationship she is holding on to. Her mother, her pastor, her oldest friend, her sister, a mentor from her college years. 4 of the 5, gently, separately, without ever comparing notes, told her the same painful thing, and she has decided those 4 do not really understand the situation, and she is on her way to person number 6. Look at what she is actually doing. She is not gathering counsel. She is holding auditions. The verdict was written in her heart before the first meeting, and now she is interviewing witnesses until she finds one who will testify for the defense. Here is the second. Sign hunting. A man has ignored 10 direct warnings about the business he is determined to launch. His accountant walked him through the numbers. His wife voiced her fear twice and went quiet. 2 men he respects bought him breakfast and laid it out straight. 10 flares fired across his sky, and he blinked past every one. But last Tuesday, a billboard on the highway had 1 word from his business plan on it. And a song came on in the truck that felt like confirmation. And Sunday, the sermon was about stepping out of the boat. And he came home glowing. God keeps confirming it everywhere I turn. Do the math on that. Friend, when you need a magnifying glass to find your yes while you are stepping over 10-foot warning signs to reach it, ask yourself very seriously, who is manufacturing the signs? The heart that is set on a thing will find omens, the way a magnet finds iron filings. And it will call the collecting faith. Here is the third. The one-way prayer. And this one you can test tonight before you sleep, because the evidence is in your own recent words. Think back to the last time you prayed about your door. Was there an if anywhere in it? Was there one sentence, even one clause, where an outcome other than the one you want was allowed to exist? Or has the praying quietly become a work order? The same request slid across the same counter, where the Almighty God of heaven and earth has been assigned exactly one task, and the task is open it. When every prayer ends in the same demand, the praying has stopped being relationship and started being pressure. You are not seeking His face anymore. You are seeking His signature, and He is not a notary. And here is the fourth, the saddest one: enemy making. Slowly, un by un, everyone who questions the door becomes a villain in the story you tell about your life. Your mother does not get it. Your pastor is too cautious. That friend is jealous. That one is negative. That one never believed in you anyway. Watch that pattern with fear and trembling, because when the cast of your life keeps rearranging itself so that everybody blocking your road wears a black hat, the common denominator in all that recasting is not them. 4 fingerprints. And underneath all 4, down at the root, there is one condition they grow out of, and I will name it as gently as I know how. Somewhere along the way, the door stopped being a doorway and became your address. It stopped being a thing you hoped for and became the thing you are. So here is the clearest sign of all, clearer than the shopping and the hunting and the recasting put together. Sometimes the clearest sign is not that the door refuses to open. It is that you no longer know how to live unless it does. When a hope grows to the size where your whole identity is standing inside it, then whatever that door was at the beginning, it has become an altar now, and what you are doing at it has another name. Before I close this chapter, I owe you a fence, because a word this sharp can cut the wrong person. And there is somebody watching who must not bleed tonight. There is a mother in this audience who has prayed for a son in addiction for 10 years. A husband praying for a wife whose heart has wandered. A grandmother who has knocked on heaven for her grandchildren every morning since before they could walk. That is not forcing. Friend, do not let the enemy take this chapter and whip you with it. Persistent intercession is not manipulation. Jesus told a story about a widow who banged on a judge's door until he answered. And Scripture says he told it so that men ought always to pray and not to faint. So where is the line? Here it is. And it is bright. Persistence opens its hands every night and places the outcome back where it belongs. It knocks and weeps and trusts and goes to sleep with empty palms. Forcing snatches the outcome back every morning. It schemes. It steers. It maneuvers people like chess pieces. And it cannot rest, because rest feels like losing control. The mother praying for her addicted son would cross into forcing only on the day she starts lying to arrange his life behind his back and calling the arranging faith. Knock as long as love lasts. Just check whose hands the outcome sleeps in. So the hand can force. We have established that. And some of us found our own fingerprints on the glass. And that is a painful and holy thing to see. But now the honest ones are back. And this time, the question comes from a cleaner place. And it deserves the most careful chapter of this night. Somebody is saying, "Preacher, I ran every test you gave. I am not shopping for counsel. I am not hunting signs. My prayers still have if in them. and the people warning me. I still love and still hear. My hands are clean, and my dream is good. It asks me to lie to no one. It costs nobody their dignity. It would bless people if it came true. So why is the door still shut? You are asking the oldest question in the throne room, and the answer is waiting in a palace in Jerusalem. On the night the most beloved king in Israel brought God the purest request of his entire life, a request so selfless that the prophet standing next to him blessed it on the spot. And God said no. See now, I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwelleth within curtains. That is a king talking, sitting in his palace in the evening, and the sentence has been building in him for weeks. Understand where David is in his story. The cave at En-Gedi is decades behind him. The fugitive years are over. Saul is gone. The crown sits where Samuel said it would sit. And Scripture opens this scene with a line David waited his whole life to hear. The Lord had given him rest round about from all his enemies, for the first time since he was a boy with a sling. Nobody is chasing him, and he sits there in the evening, running his hand over cedar walls, the finest building material money could buy in that world. And he looks out the window toward the tent, because that is where God lives, the Ark of the Covenant, the throne of the Almighty's presence on earth, the holiest object in the nation, sits out there under fabric and poles, a tent pitched in the capital, while the king sleeps behind cedar, and the mismatch eats at David until he cannot hold it in. And he says it out loud to the prophet Nathan. Now weigh this request before anything else, because I want you to see how pure it is. He is not asking for a single thing, not a bigger kingdom, not a longer life, not one more enemy handed over. The man has everything, and out of the fullness he wants to give something back. He wants to build God a house. It is the most selfless ambition of his entire reign, born in gratitude, aimed at glory, and it would cost him instead of paying him, if any desire ever deserved a yes. This is the one, and Nathan thinks so too. Listen to his answer. Go, do all that is in thine heart, for the Lord is with thee. Mark that carefully. A real prophet, a proven prophet, the man who will later stand in this same court and call down the judgment of God on this same king without flinching. Hears the dream and blesses it on the spot, which means something you need for your own situation. Even wise counsel can bless a door God is about to close. Nathan was no flatterer and no fool. The dream just sounded that right. Godly people around you saying go is a gift, and you should treasure it. But it is a witness, not a verdict. There is only one throne, and Nathan did not sit on it, because that night the word of the Lord comes to Nathan, and God sends him back to the palace in the morning, carrying an answer nobody saw coming. Walk through it slowly, because the way this answer is built is the whole lesson. It opens with a question. Shalt thou build me an house for me to dwell in? I have not dwelt in any house since the day I brought Israel up out of Egypt. I have walked in a tent, from tent to tent, in all the places where I have moved with all the children of Israel. Did I ever ask any of the tribes, why have you not built me an house of cedar? Hear the tenderness inside that. God is saying, David, the tent was my idea. I chose to camp with my people while my people were camping. I was never sitting out there feeling homeless, waiting for somebody to notice. Sometimes the burden you carry for God is a burden God never handed you. And the first mercy of a closed door is finding out the wait was optional. But the no is coming. And here it is. And years later, David himself will stand in front of the whole nation and repeat it in his own words. So we have it from his own mouth. God said to him, "Thou shalt not build an house for my name, because thou hast been a man of war, and hast shed blood." Flat and final. The answer to the purest request of his life is no. The temple will rise one day, and David will not be the one who raises it. Now, before we see what God does next, look hard at what God does not do. Because half the church has this backwards. God does not say the dream was wrong. Listen to what stands in the record instead. Spoken at the dedication of the finished temple, in front of everyone. The Lord said to David, "My father, whereas it was in thine heart to build an house unto my name, thou didst well that it was in thine heart." Read that again and let it heal something. Thou didst well that it was in thine heart. God graded the desire and the assignment separately. The desire scored a well done. The assignment went to another man. And that one distinction untangles years of confusion for some of you. Because you were taught that God only refuses bad things. So every no felt like an indictment of the wanting. It is not. A desire can be sincere and honorable and planted by love and still not be your assignment. The dream can be good and the answer can be no, and both of those can be true on the same night in the same room. And then, while David is still standing under that no, God reverses the whole sentence. David said, "I will build you a house." And God says, "Also the Lord telleth thee that he will make thee an house." Not a building, a dynasty. Thy throne shall be established forever. A son on your throne, and his son, and his, running down the centuries until the line arrives at a manger in Bethlehem, in the city of David, where a child is born whose kingdom will have no end. David walked into that conversation, offering God cedar and stone. He walked out carrying a covenant with the Messiah folded inside it. He asked to build something that might stand a few centuries. He was handed something that will outlast the sun. So learn to read the envelope. Some of God's refusals arrive like this one, addressed on the outside with the thing you asked for, and folded on the inside around the thing he intended. And the ones who tear it up unopened never find out what the no was carrying. I am not promising you that every closed door has a covenant behind it. I made you a promise in the first minute of this night, and I am keeping it. But the record shows a God whose no is not always a subtraction. Sometimes it is a trade you would have made in a heartbeat if you could have seen both sides of the paper. Now bring it home to your own street. Because this exact shape of grief is sitting in this audience right now. There is a man who served his church for 20 years, faithful in every season. And everyone assumed, he assumed, that when the senior pastor retired, the mantle would come to him. The board prayed, and the board chose a younger man from outside. Nobody did anything wrong, and that is what makes it so hard to hold. Now every Sunday he sits in the third row and watches another man preach from the pulpit he had already stood behind 1,000 times in his mind. And there is a woman who built a community project from her kitchen table. 5 years of unpaid nights. And this spring, right as it finally caught funding and caught fire, the board handed the leadership to someone with more credentials. They were not wrong to do it, and she was not wrong to weep in her car. This is the loneliest kind of loss, the kind with no villain in it. Nobody sinned against you. There is nobody to forgive and nobody to blame. There is just a good dream and a closed door and another name on the assignment. The world does not even make a card for that grief. Heaven does. Because look at what David does next. This is the part of the story almost nobody preaches. And it might be the most beautiful thing the man ever did. And I am including the giant. He does not sulk. He does not resign the crown. And he does not spend his last years at the city gate telling everyone how the temple was really his idea. Turn to the end of his life, in the book of 1 Chronicles, and find the old king, white-haired now, and look at what is piled around him. Gold, silver, bronze and iron past weighing. The text says, cedar logs in stacks. Stone already cut and dressed by masons he hired himself. The chronicler stacks the numbers the way David stacked the treasure. 100,000 talents of gold, 1,000,000 talents of silver, piling figure on figure until counting gives up and awe takes over. And the old man keeps going, reaching past the treasury into his own personal fortune, his private gold, and pouring that onto the pile too. Listen to him charge his son. Solomon, my son, is young and tender, and the house that is to be builded for the Lord must be exceeding magnifical. So David spends his final strength gathering materials for a building he has been told by God, in plain words, he will never see. Stand at the edge of that picture and take it in. An old man stacking treasure in front of a door that is closed to him. He is not stockpiling it to force the door. He is stockpiling it so that the one who gets to walk through will not walk through empty-handed. And that is the answer to a question you did not know you were asking. You have wondered what spiritual maturity actually looks like. Past the cliché. It is not just doing what God says. Plenty of people obey with a clenched jaw. Maturity is this. It is blessing the dream after it is handed to somebody else. It is gathering gold for a temple with another man's name on the cornerstone, and calling the gathering a privilege instead of a consolation prize. Some of us are called to build the temple. Some of us are called to gather the gold. Heaven writes down both names. And in case you wonder whether heaven really does, here is a detail to keep in your pocket. Solomon built that temple. Solomon dedicated it. And Solomon's name went on the era. But when the scriptures speak of the holy city, generation after generation, the name that clings to it is not Solomon's. It is called the City of David. The man who never built the house is the man the address remembers. So a good dream can be denied, and the denial can carry a covenant. That ground is solid, and I have watched it hold the weight of real grief. But I know who I have not spoken to yet. Somebody has sat through this whole chapter with their arms crossed over a wound, saying, "Preacher, that is a beautiful story. But my no did not come wrapped in anything. There was no covenant in my envelope. No dynasty. No Nathan with a second message. No gold to gather. My door just closed, and it is not opening again. Not in this life. And I know that the way you know a thing at 3 in the morning. I hear you, And I will not hand you a story with a bow on it, because you have been handed too many of those already. What I will do is take you to the darkest week in David's own life, the one that begins with a sick child and 7 nights on a stone floor, and ends at dawn with the servants whispering in the hallway, because the king has just done something none of them can explain. We go there next. Walk slow. This one is holy ground. The elders of the king's house are gathered around a man lying face down on the stone floor, and they cannot get him to rise. They have tried for days. They speak to him, and he does not answer. They bring food, and he will not touch it. This is David, King of Israel, the man who ran at a giant, flat on the ground in the dark, and he has been there for 6 days. I need to tell you how he got there, and I will tell it straight, because David never hid it. The man after God's own heart fell, and fell hard. Bathsheba, the rooftop, the summons, the cover-up, the arranged death of a loyal soldier named Uriah, and Nathan, the same prophet who once blessed David's temple dream, walked into the throne room, told a story about a stolen lamb, and pointed his finger at the King of Israel. Thou art the man, part of the wreckage of that season. The prophet said, Was this? The child that is born unto thee shall surely die. And the child falls sick. And now watch what David does. Because everything we have learned tonight about the difference between faith and forcing is about to be tested in the hardest room there is. David besought God for the child. He fasted. He went in and lay all night upon the earth, night after night. The king of Israel, face down on stone, refusing food, refusing comfort, refusing his own bed, pounding on the door of heaven with his whole body. Somebody watching this is running the tests from chapter 3 and getting nervous. Is this forcing? A prophet already said the child would die. Is David doing the Balaam thing? Dragging a settled question back to God? No, and you need to see why. Because the difference is your permission slip. Listen to David explain himself later. In his own words, who can tell whether God will be gracious to me, that the child may live? Who can tell? Hold those 3 words up to the light. David is not scheming. He is not manipulating one person, not arranging anything behind anyone's back, not pretending the prophet never spoke. He is simply refusing to close a door that God himself has not physically closed yet. The child is still breathing, and as long as the child is breathing, there is a who can tell. And as long as there is a who can tell, love is allowed to lie on the floor and beg. Mark this down, because somebody needs the permission tonight. While the door can still open, pounding on it with your whole body is not a lack of faith, and it is not a lack of surrender. It is what love does. The same man who refused to force a door in the cave at En-Gedi is refusing to abandon a door in the palace at Jerusalem. And both postures came out of the same heart. Faith knows when to take its hand off a handle. Faith also knows when to knock until its knuckles bleed. Then comes the 7th day, and the child dies. The servants are terrified to tell him. The text records them whispering, Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. How will he then vex himself, if we tell him the child is dead? They are afraid the news will break him past repair. And David sees the whispering. reads their faces, and asks it straight, "Is the child dead?" And they say, "He is dead." Now watch this man. Watch what he does, because it is one of the most astonishing sequences of verses in the Bible. Then David arose from the earth, and washed, and anointed himself, and changed his apparel, and came into the house of the Lord, and worshipped. The servants cannot process what they are seeing. This is backwards. You fast before, you weep after. That is how grief runs. And here is the king rising off the floor, bathing, dressing, walking to the house of God with his face washed. So they ask him, bewildered, "What thing is this that thou hast done? Thou didst fast and weep for the child while it was alive. But when the child was dead, thou didst rise and eat bread." And David answers. Receive this answer as one of the most mature sentences a grieving man has ever spoken beside a closed door. "While the child was yet alive, I fasted and for I said, who can tell whether God will be gracious to me, that the child may live? But now he is dead. Wherefore should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. Do you see the hinge? While there was a who can tell, he gave that door everything he had. When the who can tell was gone, he did not pitch a tent in front of the door and live there. He got up. Hear me carefully. Friend, he did not get over it. He got up. Those are different verbs, and heaven knows the difference. There is a kind of faith that pounds on a door, and there is a kind of faith that stands up off the floor when the door has sealed. And it is the same faith in two different hours. The first one says, God can. The second one says, God is still God, even though he did not. And the second one costs more. And notice where his feet went first. Straight to the house of the Lord, to worship, with the wound still open. That was not David pretending to be fine. Worship on that morning was David saying to God, with the child's room still full of the child's things, "You are not on trial. I do not understand you this week, and I am not leaving you." Some of you have believed those two sentences cannot live in the same chest. They can. They did. They do. Now, I have to stop the story completely, because I made you a promise in the first minute of this night, and this is where I keep it. I know who has been sitting quietly through every chapter so far. You heard Nehemiah and thought, my wall is not being opposed. My wall is gone. You heard the temple story and thought, there was no covenant in my envelope, because your door is not a career or a calling. Your door is a grave. Your door is a marriage that ended when the other person walked, and your faithfulness never got a vote. A diagnosis that does not reverse. A phone number you cannot bring yourself to delete. And you have sat in church while somebody chirped that when God closes a door, he opens a window, and you wanted to stand up and ask, what window? Show me the window. Friend, come close, because I will not do that to you. I am not going to staple a silver lining to your grave. Scripture does not do it, and I will not either. When Jesus stood outside the tomb of his friend Lazarus, knowing that in a few minutes he would call the man out alive, the shortest verse in the Bible happened. Jesus wept. He did not skip the weeping because he had inside information. He stood with two devastated sisters in front of a sealed stone and cried real tears with the resurrection already in his hands. So whatever else is true tonight, this is true. Tears in front of a closed door do not offend God. He shed some there himself, and I will not promise you that something better is coming around the corner, because I do not know your corner. And preachers who promise what they cannot see are comforting themselves. Here is what I can promise, because it is in writing. He is near to the broken-hearted, near to the broken, not near to the explanation. This book never once promises you the reason. Friend, it promises you the presence. And on the worst flaws of your life, presence is the only thing that ever actually helped anyway. There is one more mercy in David's words, so do not miss it. I shall go to him, 4 words, and a door inside them that death did not get to close. I cannot prove that to your aching heart tonight, and I will not pretend the verse answers every question we bring to it. But a king who lost what you lost said it while the tears were still wet, and he said it like a man planning a journey. For those who belong to God, some closed doors are not endings. They are addresses we have not traveled to yet. Now, the floor is not the end of this chapter, because getting up is one thing, and what you get up into is another. There is an old prophet I need you to meet, in a house in Ramah, and his grief is not for a child, it is for a king. Samuel anointed Saul with his own hands, poured the oil, believed in him, staked the hope of his old age on what Saul could become, and Saul collapsed, disobedience after disobedience, until God rejected him from being king. And it tore Samuel's heart in half. Scripture says Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul. That grief was honest, and it was righteous. He was not mourning a stranger. He was mourning his own poured-out oil. But listen to the voice of God come into that house, and listen to exactly what it says and what it never says. How long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thine horn with oil, and go. I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons. Look at that sentence, the way we have looked at every sentence tonight. God does not say, stop feeling sad. He does not call the grief a sin, and he does not pretend the loss was small. He asks a question with a clock inside it. How long? Which tells you 2 things at once, and you need both. The mourning had a legitimate season, because God let it run before he ever spoke, and the season has an end, because grief was meant to be a road you walk, not a residence you keep. Somewhere along the way, Samuel's mourning had quietly changed jobs. It began as love, feeling a loss. It had become a reason not to move. And God, who is kind, and who is also going somewhere, put his hand on his old prophet's shoulder and gave him the mercy nobody wants and everybody needs. An assignment. Fill your horn with oil. He never said, dry your tears first. Fill the horn and go. And if the tears come with you down the road to Bethlehem, let them come. The feet go to Bethlehem. Because look what was waiting there. A teenager in a sheep field. The next king, the greatest king, the man after God's own heart, the ancestor of the Messiah, out with the flock, while his own father forgets to call him in for the lineup. That is what stood on the other side of Samuel's How long? So I have to ask you straight. Because I love you, and this is the chapter for it. What is waiting on the other side of yours? What Bethlehem is standing there with the oil ready while you keep vigil at a door God has already labeled? And before we walk on, one thing more, said carefully, brother to brother. Everything in this chapter assumes an ordinary broken heart, the kind that aches and heals crooked and keeps going. Some of you are carrying something past that. The sleep has been broken for weeks. Food has lost its taste. The grey has a physical weight. No sermon reaches. And the dark has started saying darker things, whispering that the people you love might be better off without you. Friend, hear me with everything I have. On the last free night of his life, Jesus of Nazareth knelt in a garden called Gethsemane, in front of the most closed door in history, and he asked for it to open. Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me, he asked with sweat falling like drops of blood, which means the strain was in his body, not just his soul. And heaven's answer was not to open the door. Heaven's answer was an angel, sent to strengthen him. Sit with that, the Son of God. In his darkest hour, received help and was not ashamed to need it. The door stayed shut and the strength still came. And the strength came through a helper. So if the Son himself was not too holy to be strengthened, you are not too faithful to pick up a phone. Your next step is not chapter 6 of this video. Your next step is a doctor or a licensed counselor. Today, and if the dark is talking to you right now, tonight, about ending things, then please do not wait for morning and do not stay alone. Reach for crisis support where you live. Call someone who loves you and stay on the line until help is beside you. That reach is not weak faith. In the garden, even Jesus let the angel come. Let yours come. A counselor's office and a prayer closet were never enemies. Friend, they are two rooms in the same house of healing, and you are allowed to use both. So the king got up off the floor, and the prophet filled the horn. Both of them stood, and both of them walked. But walked into what? Nobody warns you about that part. Taking your hand off a handle takes 1 second. What comes after can take a year or 3. The door behind you is locked, and the door ahead of you has not appeared, and you are standing in the space between, which has its own name and its own weather. The hallway. There is a man in the book of Acts who walked the longest one in the New Testament, hundreds of miles of it, with 2 locked doors behind him and no explanation in his pocket. And where his hallway ended, the gospel jumped a continent. Come, walk it with him. Forbidden. That is the entire explanation Paul gets. 1 word deep. The book of Acts, chapter 16. Paul and his team are seasoned now. Churches planted behind them. Scars earned. A track record of open doors. And they set out to preach the word in the province of Asia. A good plan. A godly plan. Preaching the gospel is never the wrong ambition. And the text says, flat and unexplained, they were forbidden of the Holy Ghost to preach the word in Asia. So they adjust, the way faithful people do, and aim north instead, toward Bithynia, whole cities that have never heard the name of Jesus. And the text says, they assired to go into Bithynia, but the Spirit suffered them not. Blocked again. 2 doors. 2 locks. 0 explanations. And here is the detail that changes how you read your own life. So do not step past it. Get a map in your mind. From the region where the first door closed, down to the port city of Troas, where this stretch ends, is hundreds of miles. On foot, weeks of walking, which means there was a season. A real season with mornings and evenings and blisters in it. When the Apostle Paul knew exactly two things about the will of God. Not Asia, not Bithynia. That is the entire content of his guidance. He knows nothing about Macedonia yet, nothing about Philippi, or Lydia, or the jailer at midnight, or the letters he will one day write to churches that do not exist yet. The vision comes at Troas, at the end of the hallway, never the beginning. Every step of that long road was taken on the strength of one thin fact. The only direction not yet forbidden is forward. So forward is where the next foot goes. That is the hallway, the stretch between a door that locked and a door that has not appeared. And this passage forces something on us about how God leads. Whether we like it or not, most of us want guidance like a paper map, the whole route visible, destination circled, rest stops marked. What the book of Acts actually shows is guidance like the voice in your car. It gives you the next turn. It recalculates without apologizing. It speaks when the turn matters and goes quiet in between. Paul got not Asia, then not Bithynia, then at Troas. Finally, come over into Macedonia, one turn at a time. He hardly ever hands out the whole map, friend, and he is not going to start with yours. The whole way is where you make peace with that, or make war with it. And one more piece of honesty before I hand you the tools, because I promised no bows on this package. When the new door finally opened for Paul, it opened onto a continent, Europe, history pivoting on one vision in the night. Your hallway may not end like that, and I refuse to promise it will. Sometimes the hallway ends at a great door. Sometimes it ends at a small, honest responsibility nobody will ever make a movie about. Sometimes it ends at a season of healing that just makes you human again. The sight of the next door was never the measure of whether you walked the hallway right. Faithfulness is the measure, and faithfulness comes in every size. So, how do you live there? Live, I said, not survive with your teeth clenched. 4 things. I found all 4 on Paul's road, and in the rooms we have already walked tonight. And each one comes with a picture, so you can carry it out of here. Here is the first. Bury the right body. Grieve what actually ended. All of it. Most people in a hallway think they know what they lost, and most are underestimating it. And the underestimating is why the grief keeps circling back like a bill collector. There is a woman sitting in her car outside a grocery store on a Tuesday, crying harder than she cried at any point during the breakup. And she cannot figure out why. Because she is over him. She genuinely is. She is not crying over him. She is crying over a house that was never bought. On a street they drove down once and slowed the car. She is crying over a child who was never born, whose name she had privately picked and never told a soul. She is crying over the version of herself, 10 years out, that she had already met in her imagination and started loving. That woman existed. She lived in the future tense, and she died when the door closed, and nobody sent flowers. because nobody else ever knew her. So here is the work, and it is holy work. Name what actually ended. Say it out loud. The Christmases you had already decorated in your head. The title you had already practiced signing. The future self you had quietly become in your own plans. Give the loss its true name and its full funeral. What gets buried properly stays buried. What gets buried halfway comes back and haunts. Here is the second. Stop negotiating with reality. A man was let go from his company 14 months ago. And if you look closely at his life, he never actually left. He still checks the company website every Monday. He keeps his calendar light, just in case they call. Because his old director once said, "We would love to bring you back when things turn around." He has turned down 2 solid offers. Decent work, honest money, because accepting would feel like giving up on the return. Look at that man with compassion, and then say the true thing about him. He is not waiting. He is negotiating. He is trying to strike a deal with a reality that already signed its decision, offering his loyalty, his patience, his availability, as if reality takes trades, and the door does not even know he is out there. So hear the difference between hope and denial, because hallways blur them, and blurring them costs years. Hope looks at God and stays open to a future it cannot see yet. Denial stares at the old door and will accept exactly one future. The past, returned. Hope keeps your face forward and your hands free. Denial keeps you camped on a doormat, arranging your schedule, your money, and your inner life around something that already told you its answer. If your life is still organized around the convenience of a door that said no, friend, you are not hoping, you are haggling, and reality does not haggle. Here is the third. Be faithful to what is still clear. This one comes straight off Paul's road. Look what he did between the locked doors. He never sat down at the border of Bithynia and declared a holding pattern, refusing to function until heaven explained itself. Read the passage. They went through the cities, and everywhere they went, the churches were strengthened in the faith and increased in number daily. The man kept doing ministry in the hallway. The big picture was fogged out, so he worked the small picture, because the small picture was still perfectly clear, and so is yours. You do not know which door opens next, but you know today. Your kids need dinner, and your word needs keeping. The church doors need unlocking on Sunday, and somebody has to do it. Application number 48 needs writing, and the neighbor whose husband just went into the hospital needs a casserole and 10 minutes of your listening. When the future goes blurry, obedience does not go blurry. It just gets smaller. It shrinks to the size of one day, and a day is exactly the size God said our bread would come in. Do the clear thing in front of you, then the next clear thing, and let the hallway be a hallway. Nobody asked you to see the end of it. You are only asked to walk your stretch honestly. And here is the fourth, maybe the most important. So lean in. Leave room for a future you did not design. When the vision finally came at Troas, it was a man of Macedonia standing in the night, saying, "Come over and help us." That is everything Paul got. No strategy document, no 5-year plan, no picture of the work. And when they crossed the sea and reached Philippi, the leading city of that region, the great open door of Europe, do you know what it looked like on the ground that first Sabbath? a handful of women, praying by a river outside of town. That is the whole scene. Paul sits down on a riverbank and talks with the women gathered there. And one of them, a businesswoman named Lydia, opens her heart to the Lord and gets baptized. And just like that, in a conversation small enough to miss, the church in Europe has begun. The biggest door on the continent opened at the size of a Bible study by a river. Now hear the warning inside the beauty. If Paul had arrived carrying his own blueprint for what a great door must look like, he might have walked right past that riverbank, scanning the horizon for something impressive. God's doors have a habit of opening at a size that pride steps over without slowing down. So hold your pictures loosely in the hallway. The next thing may not look like the last thing. It may show up small, unglamorous, asking for help instead of offering applause. Do not prejudge the shape of the door. Just stay the kind of person who notices rivers. 4 walls of a livable hallway. Bury the right body. Stop negotiating with reality. Be faithful to what is still clear. Leave room for a future you did not design. Before we leave this road, one small thing. Somebody came into your mind during this chapter, around the first tool or the second. Afache, a name. Send them this video. The hallway convinces every person walking it that they walk it alone, and your name on their phone is evidence against that. Now look where we stand. The hand has been examined, and we found its fingerprints. The open doors have been tested, the good dreams weighed, the floor and the horn of oil behind us, the hallway mapped, which leaves exactly one piece of unfinished business between you and me. And it is the biggest one, because it is the reason you clicked. The title of this message made you a promise. How to know when God is closing a door. I have not forgotten it, and I have not been dodging it. I have been building the courtroom all night, so the verdict would mean something when it came. So next, I answer it, straight as I can, honest as I can, the way a witness answers under oath. What you can actually know, what nobody on this earth can know, and how to tell the difference without lying to yourself in either direction. And if my answer is humbler than the thumbnail that brought you here, it will also be truer. And at 3 in the morning, true is what holds. Come back to the door, the one from the first minute of this night. Your hand is still on the handle, but something has changed since we started, and you can feel it. When we began, that hand was in the dark. Now, it stands in the light of every room we have walked through. A midnight wall in Jerusalem, a smooth ship at Joppa, a blind prophet on a narrow road, an old king stacking gold, a father rising off a stone floor, a long dirt hallway that ended at a river. Every one of those rooms was a witness. And the witnesses have all testified. So now I keep the promise I made in the first minute. I am going to answer the question on the title of this video, and I am going to answer it under oath. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing added to make the thumbnail happy. The whole truth comes in 3 parts. What a closed door cannot tell you, what it can, and what it asks of you either way. First, hear what a closed door cannot tell you, because half the pain in this room tonight comes from messages that door never actually sent. A closed door cannot tell you that God has forgotten you. The man in the exact center of God's will slept beside a sword on a broken wall. and heaven had not misplaced his file for one single night. A closed door cannot tell you that your faith failed. David prayed on his face for 7 days with real faith. Faith, heaven itself honored, and the door still sealed. If faith were a key that opened every lock, it would stop being faith. It would be a vending machine. A closed door cannot tell you the dream was wrong. Ask the king who wanted to build the temple. God himself graded that desire, and the grade stands in the book. Thou didst well that it was in thine heart. The dream scored a well done, and the answer was still no. And both lines live in the same story. A closed door cannot promise you something bigger is coming by spring. I know that line gets preached, and I know why. It feels good leaving the mouth. But Paul walked hundreds of miles between his no and his next yes. And some of the faithful in Hebrews chapter 11 died, still waiting. And the book calls them heroes. Never failures. Sometimes the better thing comes fast. Sometimes it comes slow. Sometimes it comes on the other side of this life entirely. And I will not put a delivery date on what heaven has not scheduled. And a closed door cannot hand you, or me, or any preacher with a microphone, the secret motives of Almighty God, when his answer to David came with a reason. The reason came from his mouth. From David's guessing it did not. Where God has stayed silent about the why, the humble thing, the only honest thing, is a bowed head and an open hand. Anyone claiming to read the private counsel of heaven off your circumstances is selling you a map of a country they have never seen. That is what the door cannot say. Now here is what I can give you, and it is real. So take it. There are 5 signs that give you serious reason. Hear me. Serious reason. Never certainty. To believe a door is closing. Every one of them took the stand tonight. So I will call them back in order. 1. The pursuit now requires disobedience or compromise. To keep this door open, you have to lie, or bend what you promised God you would never bend, or take by your own knife what only He has the right to give. That is the ship at Joppa and the whisper in the cave at En-Gedi. And this sign outranks every other sign on the list. God will close a door before He will ever ask you to become someone He is not building. If the toll booth on this road charges character, the road is not His. 2. Keeping it alive requires denying reality, or violating people, or abandoning what is clearly yours to do. When you are steering around plain facts, pushing past the stated boundaries of other human beings, or letting the assignments God already gave you starve, so this one possibility can eat, the hand has stopped knocking. It is prying. 3. The mature, independent, godly voices in your life are converging, and you have caught yourself shopping for voice number 6. One discouraging opinion means nothing. But when the people who love you, who walk with God, who have nothing to gain, keep arriving at the same painful conclusion from different directions, that convergence is not a conspiracy. Scripture says, in the multitude of counselors there is safety. And Balaam had a whole road full of counsel he refused to see. 4. The door has become your address. You no longer know how to live unless it opens. Your identity has moved inside it. Your peace rises and falls with it. It is the first thing your mind reaches for in the morning and the last thing it releases at night. When a hope grows to that size, it has stopped being a hope, whatever it was at the beginning. It is an altar now, And you are not waiting at it anymore. You are worshipping. N5. This one is the quietest, and it may be the truest. After real prayer, after honest counsel, after enough time for feelings to settle and dust to clear, the question in your chest has changed on its own. It used to be, how do I get this open? And somewhere along the way, without you deciding it, it became, how do I stay faithful if it never opens? Listen to that shift with reverence. Sometimes the turning of the question is the sound of the lock, heard from the inside. The heart often signs the paperwork before the mind admits the sale. 5 signs. Now, stand still, because what comes next matters as much as the list itself. This is not a machine. You do not feed your circumstances in one end and collect a verdict out the other. And if you try to use it that way, you will hurt yourself with it. One sign alone proves nothing. Even all 5 together are grounds for serious prayer, never grounds for a press release about what God has decided. Discernment was never a formula. Friend, it is a relationship. It is scripture, and honesty, and wise counsel, and unhurried time, and the humility to say the 3 words American Christians hate most. I don't know, while you keep walking with the God who does. The signs can tell you where to look. Only He can tell you what you are looking at. So then, the last part. If the door cannot tell you His motives, and the signs cannot hand you certainty, what does a closed door actually ask of you? 4 things, and they are the same 4 whether the door turns out to be closed, delayed, or just heavy. It asks for honesty, the kind that reads its own fingerprints without flinching. It asks for humility, the kind that lets God be God without demanding He file a report. It asks for obedience that keeps doing the next clear thing while the big thing stays foggy. And it asks for one thing more, and I want you to hear it said out loud at least once in your life, because nobody says it. It asks you to let a chapter end without letting it become your whole identity. You are allowed to be someone a door happened to. You are not required to become the door. Somewhere down the road, when someone asks about this season, the healthiest sentence you will ever say is, yes, that door closed. And then, by the grace of God, the story kept going. That is my answer. What you can know, what you cannot, and what it asks. Humbler than the thumbnail. I told you it would be, but there is one more door I have not told you about, and I saved it on purpose, because everything I have said tonight either stands or falls on this last one. It is the heaviest door in the story of this world. An empire sealed it. Soldiers stood in front of it, with one assignment between them: make certain this door never opens. It is Saturday, just outside Jerusalem, and the whole world believes the story is over. There is a garden, and in the garden a tomb cut into rock, and against its mouth a stone heavy enough to need several men. In Matthew's account, the governor's seal is pressed across that stone, and a guard detail stands watch in front of it. Think about that sentence until it becomes as strange as it actually is. Soldiers, guarding a corpse, an umpire, aiming its power at a grave. On the other side of that stone lies the body of Jesus of Nazareth, and every person who ever loved him stands on this side of it. And every one of them believes what you would believe. The door is closed. Close the way. Only death closes things. Walk through that Saturday with them. The disciples behind locked doors, running the math of despair and getting the same answer every time. The women at home, preparing spices for a body. Because spices were the only future Saturday could imagine. If ever a group of people had earned the right to say it is finished and mean it as a defeat, it was them. On that day, in front of that stone. And on the third morning, the stone moved. Here is the detail I have carried all night just to hand you now. Nobody on the outside opened that door. No disciple picked the lock. No army rolled the stone. The angel who moved it was not staging a rescue. He was staging a reveal, because the tomb was already empty. Death had been unmade from within, the heaviest door in the story of this world, sealed by the greatest empire on earth, opened from the inside. And the man who walked out of it is the only person in your whole Bible who introduces himself by his relationship to doors. Years later, the risen Jesus speaks to a small church in a city called Philadelphia, and listen to how he announces himself. These things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth, and no man shutteth, and shutteth, and no man openeth. And in the next breath, to that little congregation, he says, I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength. Now hear what he is promising there, and hear what he is not. Because I have kept faith with you all night, and I will not break it in the last chapter. He is not promising that every job door and every healing door and every relationship door on your street swings open if you believe hard enough. Doors on earth will open and close all your life, and some of the closings will hurt. And I have stood beside enough of them to stop pretending otherwise. He is promising something bigger than all of those doors put together. No man, no verdict, no economy, and no grave gets to shut you out of him. The door that decides your story was opened once, from the inside, and that one stays open. So when you hand him your handle tonight, you are handing it to the only one who has stood on the inside of a sealed door and walked out. He does not pick locks, he holds keys. So now, one last time, look down at your hand. It has been on that handle all night. I told you at the beginning I could not read your door, and that is still true. But you have read your own hand now, and I believe you know more than you knew when we began tonight. So let me tell you the 3 things that hand might be called to do at sunrise, because all 3 of them are faith. For some of you, that hand needs to keep knocking. You checked the fingerprints, and they came back clean. You are holding a command, and the wall you are building has enemies, precisely because it matters. So knock. Knock like the widow. Knock like David on the floor while the child still breathed. And let no video, including this one, talk you off a door God told you to stand at. For some of you, that hand needs to let go. The love did not run out. The funeral is simply over. You buried the right body tonight. You named the future that ended. And you heard the how long question with your own ears. And you know the horn needs filling. Letting go at that moment is worship with an open hand. And for some of you, the hand has a 3rd assignment, the strangest and most beautiful one. You are being called to do what the old king did. to take your love for a dream that now carries someone else's name and turn it into gold gathering, to mentor the one who got the position, to fund the vision you will not lead, to bless, out loud and in public, the very door that closed on you, so that whoever walks through it walks through carrying treasure you stacked. There is no plaque for that down here, but the city still bears David's name. Now pray with me, wherever you are, in the car, in the bed, in the kitchen with one light on. You do not need to close your eyes. You need to mean it. Father, I came into this night with my hand on a handle, and you know which one. I do not have to describe my door to you. You were there the day it appeared, and you have been there every hour since, including the hours I accused you of being somewhere else. So first, Lord, here is my hand. I confess what I found on it tonight. The counsel I shopped for until somebody agreed with me. The signs I hunted while I stepped over your warnings. The prayers that were really work orders, where I gave you one job and grew angry when you would not do it. The people I turned into villains because they told me the truth. Father, forgive me. I called it faith, and some of it was fear wearing faith's jacket. And you knew the difference all along and loved me anyway. And now, Lord, here is my door. I am taking my hand off the outcome. If knocking is what you ask, I will knock until you say otherwise. But the results go back where they have always belonged, in your hands. If this door is yours to open, open it in your hour, and I will walk through it with gratitude. If it is closed, give me the grace of David at dawn, to get up and wash and worship you with the wound still open. And if what stretches ahead of me is a hallway, long and unexplained, then walk it with me. Keep me faithful to the small, clear things. Keep me the kind of person who notices rivers. And do not let me miss a Bethlehem because I was still keeping vigil at a Ramah. And last, Father, the other hands, somebody praying with me right now is past the reach of any sermon, and the dark has been saying terrible things to them. Put your arm around them tonight and walk them to help. Today, a doctor, a counselor, a human being who can sit beside them and let them feel no shame on the way. Because in the garden, even your own son, let the angel come. For every hand on every handle in the sound of my voice, be near. You said you were near to the broken-hearted. There are enough broken hearts in this room tonight to hold you to it. In the name of Jesus, the one who holds the key of David, the one who was sealed in and walked out, the one who opens what no man can shut. Amen. Hear this before you go, because I am not sending you out with a whisper. You did not fail because a door closed. The best man in this book stood in front of a no with a clean heart and a right dream, and heaven called him beloved. You are not alone in the hallway. The eyes that saw a handful of women praying by a river can see your stretch of road at this hour, and they do not blink. And the last door of your story has already been opened, from the inside, by someone who knew you would need it, and no man can shut it. One more thing, and it takes 10 seconds. At the start of this night, I asked you to write one word in the comments, knocking or holding, and I said I would ask again. This is me asking. Go back to your comment, find it, and answer yourself underneath it with one of 3 words: knocking. If you are staying at that door on purpose now, with a command in your hand instead of a habit, releasing. If tonight was the funeral, and you are taking your hand off the handle and giving the outcome back to God, or gathering. If you are doing the bravest one, blessing a dream that belongs to someone else now and stacking gold in front of their door. Somebody scrolling these comments at 2 in the morning is standing where you stood when this video began. And your one word might be the light under their door. And if this table fed you tonight, subscribe to Sacred Scrolls, because this channel exists for the hard seasons of the walk. And there are more rooms in this book than one night could open. Now go. A closed door does not always tell you where God is taking you. Sometimes it only tells you this: you are no longer being asked to remain where you were. Take your hand off the handle and walk.